Sawadee Cup, everyone. Welcome back to stream. We're covering now a leg between Perth and Kuala Lumpur. Just about to start the arrival now into Kuala Lumpur. You might have noticed that turn on the aircraft, and that turn there was the airplane now just passing over the island of Singapore. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, yep, that's it. We're finished Singapore already. Let me just show you very quickly what we've been through on today's flight. We were en route between Perth, down there in Western Australia, all the way up to Singapore. Came across the island of, I think this is Java. I'm not sure which is Java or Sumatra, but this might be Java and part of Sumatra. Crossing Singapore here. Now we are essentially over the state of Johor Bahru, or the province of Johor Bahru, in peninsular Malaysia. And we'll start our descent soon. I'm gonna jump into the flight deck here and start working on some of the requirements, I guess, for the flight for the arrival. I'll tell you what the weather is like in Kuala Lumpur. As you see there, winds are calm, greater than 10 kilometers, few clouds at 3,000, 28 degrees Celsius, QNH is 1009er, so it's a pleasant day to go flying. And unfortunately there's no air traffic control there. We had some as we were flying over Indonesia, but for the arrival into Kuala Lumpur, it doesn't look like there's anybody there to guide us in, so it's going to be us and a unicorn. I'll jump into the flight deck and then we'll get our preparations underway for the flight, for the arrival. If I can just find the key for... Yep, there it is. We're about 20 minutes away from top of descent. Sorry, 20 miles away from top of descent, so we need to hustle. Based on the wind that we had seen there in KL, I'll run through what we are expecting to fly then, which arrival, and so forth. So, into KL, well, you're going to use the Lido charts that are available on the planner again. So we're expected to fly this RMP star kilo arrival, where GNSS and RMP are required. RMP1 are required. It starts over at Gupta at level 230 or below at Gupta. You can see down here at the bottom right corner. From Gupta we're going to Aknar, and that takes us essentially a long way past the central area of Kuala Lumpur. I believe those are the Petronas Towers, maybe, I'm not entirely sure. Should be nice views all the way down to Dakba, over to Rikmi, and then for the initial approach fix at Nupku. I have no intention of flying this whole route if there is no traffic. In fact, somewhere around here, once we see the CBD of Kuala Lumpur, we'll turn into the final for the ILS localizer approach runway 14 into Kuala Lumpur, 14 left in Kuala Lumpur. This tends to be the primary arrival runway here in KL for operations in and out of Terminal 1. The central runway is used for departures by both T1 and T2 operators, and 14 right for the arrival, sorry, 15 for the arrival into T2. We're going to T1 today, which is the historical terminal that Malaysia Airlines and most of the international airport users, other than AirAsia, use in Kuala Lumpur. From Rolpa, straight in, final approach point, which is quite high up at 4,500 feet. We'll do a 3-degree glide path all the way down. Minimums for the arrival is going to be 300 feet. We comply with the ceiling and visibility requirements. Really long runway at about 4,000 meters. It's grooved and 60 meters wide. Copies on both sides. Got your full high and low intensity, full Cat 3 approach system, and that's the runway we plan on landing at. After we land, 14 left, we'll plan to exit here on Alpha 7 or Alpha 6, whichever comes earlier, and we'll taxi down here on Alpha and to a final position to park somewhere here at the main terminal in Kuala Lumpur. Don't know which time it's going to be, but it's going to be interesting, I guess. Weather's quite nice, so maybe not that interesting. Let's see. It depends on the traffic and stuff going on. This approach here in Sepang is quite easy. We go straight ahead to the Kuala Lumpur VOR. Outbound on radial 116 until 11 miles. We keep a max speed of 210 the whole way there. And then it's a left turn back to Iguri, climbing up to 5,500 to hold at Iguri. Caution here though, because there's some peaks here at 2,053 feet, and the 5,500 at Iguri might put us in the same path as the RMP arrivals going into KL. Shouldn't worry about that because RICME is at 10,000, so if everyone respects that, we should be alright. Great, so now that I've told you what the plan is, I'm going to go ahead and set all of that up onto the aircraft here. The key things that you want... Oopsie. We passed our top of descent, so let's start the descent. Started the stream a little bit late, I guess. 230 is set. I'll hit Alt Intervene. And as you can see, the aircraft goes into retard, which is telling you that the thrust levers are going on to idle. And it's on VNAV speed, so it's going to hold on to that speed until it catches the vertical path again. You can tell that we're about 500 feet below the vertical path. We're going to assist a little bit. We're going to use some drag devices to help us get down just a bit quicker. Well, that's not the view I wanted to show you. It said leading edge. Okay, so all my viewpoints are messed up. So the rudder shows you the spoiler. So there we go. Spoilers are out. We're heading our way down. Trying to catch up with the path again. RMB nav speed. Right, so as discussed, the 737 requires, compared to the other airplanes that we've been doing for a few days now, requires a little bit more manual input, so it needs to know what the courses are. Course for the inbound for the runway today is 146. That's the inbound course inbound course for the runway. And we set that up on both sides in case anybody needs to go raw data or something. 146. And just going to match the heading bug there. As you can see, the path is now coming back to us. We're about 500 feet lower. It's close to 600, and it's going to come back to us. And then I'll just let the path take care of it from that point on. The next thing you want to set up, as you do with all aircraft, are the minimums. As you'd seen on the earlier charts, minimums for the approach is going to be 300 feet. The airport itself is at 69 feet of elevation, so I'm going to go set 300 here for minimum. Excellent. Minimums of 300 feet set. We're not too far from the path. It's about 110 feet. I'm going to go ahead, stow the speed brakes. As you can see, stowed. Speed brakes on the Max are a little bit more effective than on the NG. They, I wouldn't say effective, they're nicer to pull because the touch of it is based on fly-by-wire speed brakes, so they're not actually physically controlled, connected to us. On top of which it's got an emergency descent function, so when it detects that you need to hustle your way down, the speed brakes actually go onto a higher setting than it does on flight detent. You can see that that arrow there says flight detent, and that's not arrow, this little white marker there says flight detent. That's as far back on the speed brake you can pull in flight. It goes further on the ground all the way out to up, and it's kind of locked here. You actually need to apply a little bit of force to get it past the flight detent position. But in an emergency descent, even if you go to flight detent, it pops up all the way to the stop to allow you to continue. I'll go ahead and set 10,000 feet here, which is going to be our next altitude restriction. So once we're past Gupta, 10,000 is great. The other thing you want to do here for the 737 MAX is tune your radios as required. Today, because the arrival's mostly RMP, there's nothing en route that you need. What I usually like to tune are the VORs for the airfield. Here in Kuala Lumpur, the VOR is slightly ahead of the runway, so you might get a few additional miles, about 2 miles ahead on the other side of the runway. So yeah, And then you'd also tune in the ILS frequency. So it's going to be 108.5 and 1161. 1161. Oopsie. Oh, sorry, 108.5 for the ILS. And it's 1161 for the VOR. We'll do that on both sides. At the moment we don't really have a use for the ILS. We'll switch to the VOR, and that tells you over here how many miles to run, and it's about 17 miles. If we were going straight in, we'd be in a little bit of trouble because we require, for a straight in approach, about 210. 70 miles would be level 210 with 240, added to which we'd also need to reduce the speed for the landing. So that's a nice quick and dirty way of doing the calculation for the arrival. So that's the basic stuff. The frequency is set at the bottom here on the radio panel. Frequencies are set. The inbound course is set. And finally the minimums are set. Passing level 230. Still on VNAV path, and as you can see the path goes back up to 1000 foot per minute. And soon the engines will start adding thrust. Let's see if that's how the system behaves at the end of the day. That's how it should behave. But I'm not an expert. Yeah, you see it's gone to FMC speed. So now the auto throttles kick in to maintain the speed that's been commanded by the FMC. Stays on VNAV path, and the path will command a nice 1000 foot per minute descent. Should command a nice 1000 foot per minute descent. And it's doing about 600. But a nice shallow descent is what we're looking for, roughly about 1000 foot per minute. But this, I have to say, is a bit low. I would have expected 1000, but okay. This works for me. And yeah, that's it. So the next thing we'd like to look at is actually the landing performance. Got a cool little table here, a cool little app. It's called VPT. I'll show that to you now. So VPT allows you to do landing performance calculations and takeoff calculations for your aircraft. So here we go. It says here it's on the flight simulators iFly 7378 with carbon brakes, specifically the Leap 1 Bravo edition with 28K engines. I'm going to go ahead and type Whiskey Mike Kilo Kilo, which is Sepang Airport here in Kuala Lumpur. The runway is going to be 14 left for landing. It's a 2.5 degree glide missed approach path, if that's correct. If it's not published, it's 2.5, which is the standard. It's a dry runway. We can copy these winds here. It's winds calm, so 0 and 29 degrees or 28 now. Pleasant, and the QNH is 1010. We're not flying on real time. We're flying, however, with real weather. Once again, we don't really want night arrivals. They're a little bit boring, you know. So it's a nice daytime arrival. The air conditioning is going to be on auto, anti-ice off. We're going to see for all brakes. There's no normal checklist. Speed brakes are automatic, and reverses, we're just going to go for idle reverse and see how that's going to work out for us. If I then go ahead and I want to see what the landing weight of the aircraft is, I'm just going to go onto the FMC, and we're going to click init ref. That's going to show me what my present gross weight is, and you can see that is with 4.9 tons of fuel on board. However, we expect to land with 3.9, so about a ton less, so it should be 66.7 for the landing. My motto, however, is that I'm only going to get lighter from now on, so if I can land with 67.7, I'll probably land with 66.7. So we're going to go ahead and type 67,700 there on VPT, and that's going to give us our landing calculation. Great, so it tells you a caution here, max manual and max auto. Wheel fuse plugs may melt, and we need to delay takeoff and inspect after 1 hour. The aircraft's going to be on the ground for a bit, so it's not a problem. And these are the operational landing distances that we're talking about. if you look at the landing distance that we require for the runway 14 left that we talked about, well, the exit for Alpha 7 is 2574 and Alpha 6 is 2065. So that would say auto brakes 3 will definitely get us to Alpha 7 with a full stop. Auto brakes 2 is a bit closer. I'm leaning more towards auto brakes level 3, which also gives you a ground time of 50 minutes for cooling, and 4.7 if you have a brake temperature monitoring system. There's no credit for the reverse thrust. Of course, if you use reverse thrust, performance tends to improve, and of course we're a ton lighter as well. This shows you a graphical interpretation of where you're going to stop. So with auto brakes 3 we're going to stop before Alpha 7. Alpha 6 will allow us to kind of roll onto the runway. New weather detected. Why not? We'll let it calculate with the new weather, but I'm not too fussed. I think auto brakes level 3 is definitely going to do the trick, so that's what we're going to go ahead and select for our landing. Auto brakes level 3. Oops, I guess I didn't do my after takeoff low correctly. Auto brakes level 3, no GPS jammings, no stress. 147, filling up your VNAV page will give you really good VNAV information. I don't really use that all that much. I'm just gonna go think about it in my head and figure it out as we go along. On your CDU, on your yoke, you will have your checklist. So descent, landing altitude is set to 100 feet. Go a level higher than the actual field elevation, which is 69. Recall, which, oh, haven't checked. You just hit on it and we'll just take a look at what systems pop up. Nothing's popped up. It looks good. Auto brakes are level 3, VRF and minimum. So the VRF for flaps 30 is 147 with a barrier minimums of 300. For some reason the airplane is speeding up. We're going to change over and bring her back to 300 knots. On the actual airplane, opening the speed window like this would set the airplane into VNAV speed. I'm not sure why it hasn't done so in this case, but yeah, still on pilot at 1,000 foot per minute. But yeah, in the real 737, opening the speed window here would slow it down. Of course, over time there are many variants of the 737, so I don't know. Maybe this variant has its own special thing. It's its own special UI version, let's say, for the FMC. We're looking next at the approach briefing. It's completed, and I'm just realizing now I've made a mistake with the approach briefing. In fact, if you go back to the charts that we had earlier on the flight, let's bring them up for you again. Yeah, if you come back to the charts, I said that the arrival finishes at Rickme. I was in fact wrong. The arrival carries on a loop from Rickme into a point merge system. Either way, all points are going to go straight to Nupco, and in fact that's what I'm going to do as well. Straight after the CBD, direct to Nupco. Doesn't look like there's any other traffic, and I'm monitoring them here on the on VATSIM radar. Excellent. So with all of that out the way, let's enjoy the arrival into Kuala Lumpur. Last thing I want to do here is set up the HGS, which I already have. So she's going to be helping me out for the approach. If I'm not mistaken, you should be able to see parts of the runway already, or part of the airport. That big scar on the ground, that's Kuala Lumpur International. That's the first runway, second and the third. That midfield terminal there is where we're opting to go for. If I'm not wrong, and I'm going to take a look here at Google Maps, that little bit there should be the Kuala Lumpur Autodrome, or the Sepang International Circuit, I think it's called, where the Gulf Air Formula 1 Bahrain Grand Prix in Malaysia is going to be held. Quite confusing. That is the National Automobile Museum and the Petronas Sepang International Circuit. Yep. So that's where we're going to have the Formula 1 that replaced Bahrain being run this year. Very close to the airport, so if you're trying to book your tickets, now's a good time. You can do it on a 6-hour layover. Excellent. What can I say? Let's get lower and let's try to see a little bit more of KL on the way down. Level change. Retard MCP speed. I'm not sure why F1 reference these days. Why are you not getting the Twitch notification? This is a very good question, to which I don't have an answer, honestly. I think the stream went on a bit later in Twitch, because now you can set up for it to go vertical as well, which I haven't done, so that's probably why it's slightly late. Yeah, so I'm hustling down, but I'm gonna go at least as far as Whiskey Mike Sierra Alpha, which is the second airport, the Sultan Abdul Aziz Shah Airport in central Kuala Lumpur, just so we can see some of downtown KL. I had, or have now, yes I have it now, the landmark pack for Kuala Lumpur, so we should be able to see at least something, some of the landmarks in and around KL. I'll put us back onto the external view because there's not, well, about to level off here, so I'll stay here for a second. That being said, it's quite annoying. I'll get rid of that. Yeah, you can see parts of it. That's that big new tower. The I think it's called the Merdeka. Yeah, so that's there. And if we go outside, maybe we'll catch something else. And not exactly. Oh yeah, a little bit of the Petronas Towers there, off on the right side, somewhere here. In fact, I can just about make it out. It's transition level. Altimeter is, what are the altimeters? Altimeter is 1010. That'd also be a good time to slow her down so we can get a nice view of everything going on. And the co-pilot's got a better view today. Not really. So here we are, Central KL. So that's definitely the Petronas Tower. Is obviously not really nicely done, a little bit too high to see it. And this here is the Merdeka something something. For some reason I thought it would be a lot more dramatic. It looks nice of course, but just not as dramatic as I expected it to be. So we remember the waypoint Ralpa has a restriction of at above 4,500 feet. Gonna give ourselves a shortcut shortly. So I'm gonna go ahead and set 4,500 feet here to let the plane do its thing, and then we are gonna accelerate that descent down to 4,500. Speed brakes are out. And that's happening right over downtown Kuala Lumpur. Now you can see the Petronas Towers. Half decent. Gonna take a quick look here to see if there's anybody in and around the area who's gonna get in my vicinity, in my way on flight. Oh my god, I'm looking at the actual flight radar. Let's look at VATSIM radar. No, looks like I'm all by myself here, except for Austrian Airlines, who has departed Kuala Lumpur, heading the wrong way, so we'll turn base. Lumpur traffic, Malaysia 124 on the left base for runway 14 left, flying direct to Ralpa. We are 30 miles to the north of the Victor Kilo Lima VOR, Lumpur traffic. We'll extend that final from Ralpa. Sorry, 146. Extension course. We'll execute that. That's the track for the final approach. Now I've stalled the speed brakes. And let's start recording from here. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. Yeah, so I saw that about the stream loading slowly. I'm not really sure why. I had to click it a couple times to get it to start streaming. I apologize for the inconvenience. What else can we do here? We can swap the ILS frequencies. So then we'll start receiving information from the ILS, or should start receiving information from the ILS. Which we do. Tells you that we're 25 miles out. Times 3, that's 7,500 will put us in an ideal flight path. And on the FMC as well, I'm going to go here and say HGS. Let's see, let me bring that back down. We'll activate the Alpha 3 mode of the HGS. So it should be armed now. I'm not sure why it doesn't say it's armed, but it should be. It should be telling me it's armed. Anyway, there's a few things that are broken here that, you know, shouldn't be, but it is. That final approach fix of 4,500 goes all the way to India Foxtrot 14 left. So let's give ourselves an intercept onto final, heading 180. On the MCP, we'll go ahead and set up speed. That sound you hear is the airplane telling you we have 1,000 feet to level off. Actually 900 something. As a nice segue, when you reduce the speed, brings the nose up and reduces the vertical speed, so you can get a nice shallow sort of descent going. I believe that's the National Stadium there in Malaysia, which I have missed again. Let me show you. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? There. That looks like something that could be worthy of a national stadium, but it's also kind of warped. Pretty certain that's some sort of stadium complex. Excellent, we are on the upspeed. What I'll do next is on the approach mode, so when the aircraft is on the localizer, she'll capture that, and then shortly after the glide slope. I'll intervene a little bit, go vertical speed 500 foot per minute, because we're getting to platform a little bit quicker than I anticipated. 4 lock VS. And what I'll do next is set the first notch of flaps. This will allow me to reduce the speed, which will allow me to keep the airplane in idle thrust a bit longer. But we leveled off, you know, so I don't think this was overall successful. Well, that Alpha 3 arm is now showing up on the HGS. And now we can fly almost exclusively on the HGS. Alt hold. I'm gonna go flaps 5. And select speed 180 knots. This means the glide slope's captured. As you can see, it's gone on to the full Alpha 3 mode, so it removes all the additional information that you don't need. And that's a bit early though, because it's supposed to be on glide slope capture. Close enough, I suppose. Yep, for some reason it actually didn't arm glide slope, so now it did. So Warlock GS. Ooh, glad I caught that. Should have checked that it was armed. Happens in the real airplane sometimes too. Well, it hasn't happened to me yet, but I can see it happening. Mr. Birch altitude 5,500 set, and now the HGS behaves normally. What we're gonna do is we're gonna fly. We're gonna fly this to about 10 miles, and then 160 to 4. Hopefully land successfully. Lumpur traffic, Malaysia 124. We're at 12 miles for the ILS approach, runway 14 left, Kuala Lumpur traffic. Nice, very nice. Right, this is about 10 miles. Let's get, oopsie. I'm looking for something, hold on a sec folks. Everything's in the wrong place. There we go. Gear down. And I've just set flaps 50. I'll set the speed for flaps 15.
2,500.
I'll go a step further and set flaps 25. And then finally flaps 30. The speed of 160 on set. Cabin crew, take your seats. So the approach checklist, yeah, altimeters are fine. Running checklist, engine start switches. Continuous, speed brakes, armed, landing gear, down, and flaps 30, green light. Landing checklist complete. Excellent, now we just wait for 4 miles and land. Remind myself this is a 737 in the same, which means I have to go a lot lower than I think is normal for the landing to actually stick somewhere in the touchdown zone. That's 5 miles in the runway. And my autopilot disconnect switch doesn't work. So we're gonna have to do that manually then. Both of them. The throttles are disconnected. Autopilot disengaged. And we'll set the final approach speed just now. Final approach speed set. So now we'll see how the HUD performs compared to the real airplane. In the real airplane, that weird line doesn't exist, and it's quite distracting, so we're going to go back to normal flying. Whoa, beep, 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 beep. Look at that. So far below the VREX.
1-4 left.
Maybe that line does exist, I haven't noticed it. So that could be a pilot error. And it's a bit too reactive in this thing.
400.
brakes, gear, flaps. Good.
Approaching minimums. Minimums.
Continue.
$50, $40, $30, $20, $10.
We smack that nose. That's what happens when you use auto brakes level 3 and don't catch it. Manual braking. Auto brakes are disarmed and we can actually make the first exit here. Lumpur traffic, Malaysia 124, clear of runway 14 left, Lumpur. We'll go to one of those gates. That's going to be from Bravo 11 to Bravo 3. Let's find that gate for us. Okay, so these are odd numbers only, so hold on a second. We're going to change our facility. So we're going to Bravo 5 with the APIS. As always, we won't be shutting down the engine, so we can jump in quickly to that replay and see how it went. Except for the extended time flying below VRF, I think it went alright. That was crazy. Right, and at this point we'll go ahead and start the APU as well. Now I'll turn off the taxi lights. It's Bravo 5. Oh my god, it's these ones. So these are called APIS. I hate them. They're both kind of cool and kind of tricky at the same time. And I don't know if I'm seeing arrows or not. What? But you didn't give me the red light. Ugh, that's too far. Okay. Parking brake set. And I think my colleague and I missed a few steps on the after landing flow. There we go. There we go. Wait, on, off, done. With the radar. Okay, good. So the APU is ready, we turn them on and then turn off the engines. Of course, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and watch our landing replay. Hopefully it went well. And we'll do a nice view. We'll do something like, we'll do this view. Right, this could be a good view. Disconnecting from VATSIM. I'll let Volanta know that this flight is done. And I can tell you out of Volanta thinks that this was a landing rate of 115.31. And let's see what SimFlight Tab, that's what you guys are seeing on the stream. Let's see what it thinks of it. So now I take it nobody actually wants to see this entire bit, and we're more interested in the actual landing phase of the flight. So let's bring that forward to somewhere around here when we're on glide slope. And she'll play from here. If I'm not mistaken, in this position I was already at flaps 5. So let's go ahead and set that up. Oh, she knows. Okay, good. What about the lights? Does she know? No, she doesn't. I'll get some lights on. Some start switches and APU off. And let's see how we did. All right, hope you enjoyed the arrival into Sepang. Pretty nice for me actually. Quick-ish. Might have been about 40, maybe an hour of streaming. But certainly hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you again for the next stream. Enjoy the landing. I'll still be around on text. I'd love to hear what you'll think about the approach landing into KL. Thanks.